Android Studio. So Android Studio is like basically we do coding, right? So basically we just type something in Notepad. So this Android Studio is used for writing the code for Android apps. So after that, we are going to learn how to design some basic UI components like buttons, or how to display some labels, or how to show some text, or combination boxes, radio buttons, etc. So after that, we just look into how to display images in our application, or how to upload images, or how to capture images. After that, how to browse among the screens, or and some basic programming in Android application development. So in the last, we are going to learn about the web services. So what are web services? How to connect to web service by using Wally. So Wally is nothing but it is a small library in Android. So Wally is used to connect from our Android application to a web server. Okay, so the session will be lightly interactive. So those who have some basic internet connection, like some normal internet connection, can respond. I will just tell these topics related to like Java and C Sharp and C++ itself, so that you can get in touch with it very quickly. So whatever he is developing is just comes in one software package, only one executable file. So if he needs to add some more functionality, then he needs to add more code to the same file. So this is a bad approach. So later came the modular application development, in which there will be some modules. These modules are independent parts. So we already know we are in our programming languages, we are using modules. They are reusable. The same code can be imported in many other files also. So it is well fragmented. But when deployed, all these modules, even thousands of modules, will be becoming only one final executable file. So web applications have developed this thing. So that is, no applications are deployed on your machine. They are deployed on a server, and they are served to you using HTML files. Okay. So as I have told you, this is automatic updates will be coming for us because the deployment is happening on servers. So we are just getting the HTML files. When he just updates something, we will get the same file. So search engines like Google and Yahoo, so they are also comes under web applications, and large e-commerce websites like Amazon, Flipkart. So like these applications, the complexity keeps on growing. Even in Amazon, we see new features. Amazon, they are providing a lot of services like Prime Video. They are providing a lot of applications. So their complexity is growing. So with this much of complexity, if you are just deploying it as one single file to your server, uh, it is good for you at deployment. Like it is good for your development side. Why? Because you are developing in modules. There are so many modules, so that the development becomes very easy. But for deployment, it is very difficult. So to make this a little bit more clear, let me just draw some final drawing. So I hope I won't bother you with my bad drawings. So let's say you have a website called as some website like Flipkart. Okay. What happens is that in this Flipkart web application for you, you have one module for orderings. So to take orders, you have one module. So the entire microservices topic will be covered with this just one single example. So I repeat from starting. So let's say you want to develop some website like Flipkart. You are developing this with a lot of modules or services. You have one module for taking orders. You have one module for handling the returns. So if there is a faulty product, so then the users will return it to you. So for handling that returns or cashbacks, you will just use this one. There is one more module um, that deals with some new features, like Flipkart provides us some bonus points, right? Some bonus points, or they will give us some coins. So dealing with this bonus and authentication of users, there is this module. So related to completely for users. So there is one more module they will always use called as offers. Like we have Big Billion Days, we have some offers on weekends. So during that time, most people will be using during Big Billion Days, uh, thrice or even 10 times more people will be using Flipkart or these kind of websites. So they have so many modules. These many modules are together formed into one software, or let's say one service or one file. This file will be deployed to the server. This file will be deployed to the server. From this server, we are accessing the web pages using mobiles or browsers and stuff. So this is a computer. So I'm just getting the data from here using HTML. So now, if more users are using the same website, if my Flipkart website is being used uh, extensively on offers days, like Big Billion Days, what I have to do is that I have to deploy the same software in so many servers. Like in 10 servers, I have to deploy the same software because more users will be using this, more users will be coming to my website. So I have to serve more persons. So I will be deploying the same software to more number of servers in order for users to get it very quickly. But users will not be using the returns module during the offer days. Like less number of users will be using this. I can just deploy this returns in just a single server. I don't require 10 servers. I require this bonus and authentication for 10 servers. I require this offers package for 100 servers. But what is happening? What is happening in these days for microservices is that this entire software is deployed in 100 servers. This entire software is deployed in 100 servers. After microservices have arrived, what happened is that these became orders is completely a different server. Like orders package can be completely deployed in two servers, and offers or authentication or bonus module or this package is deployed in four servers. Like we are just cutting the entire software into different parts. Okay, so and again the offers package is deployed on 100 servers. So the scalability is completely increased. So that's why the microservices are vastly used these days, and we are going to learn how microservices are created, how they should be used in Android applications today. So just now we have discussed, we have monolithic architecture first. It is very difficult to deploy. As I've just shown you in the first example, we have so many modules, but just a single software. So if you want to deploy it, you have to deploy it in 100 servers. So even if you add a small feature, you have to deploy the complete package. You have to test the complete software. It is a very difficult job. So even the scalability, complete app should be scaled. Like the complete software should be sent to the server. What microservices have done is that each service is deployed in different server. So we just have to scale individual servers. So there is flexibility. So this is the example we have just talked about. We just have some website in which we have some modules related to users, shopping, and returns. This is monolithic architecture. Coming to microservices, those three are completely different, and they will be talking to each other using some APIs like REST API or GraphQL or these kind of APIs. API is nothing but application programming interface. We'll come to it in a moment. So how is the flexibility achieved? How is the flexibility achieved here is that you are dealing with orders module. So you can completely code the orders module with Python. If you, let's say person A is familiar with Python, so person A will completely code this microservice with Python. And coming to this shopping, this module is developed by another person who is very good at C#. So he will develop this microservice with this with C#. And one more person is very good at Go language. So he will develop this returns module with Go language. So we are achieving a lot of flexibility in terms of language. Like you can use whatever language you like because they are completely different. They are not just a single software. They are different services. So both in terms of technology and in terms of deployment, we are having flexibility. So this is about microservices we have talked. So in monolithic, all the components will be present in same software. In microservice, each will be deployed in separately, and each will be having its own separate servers. So this is about microservices, and it's just an introduction. We'll talk about the microservices in a moment. How to use microservices in Android Studio, how it is beneficial for us. So coming to today's topic, Android Studio. So what is Android Studio is that, as I told you earlier, we code usually on Notepad for small files, or you may be using your favorite IDEs like PyCharm or IntelliJ IDEA or Sublime Text Editor or Atom. So these are just some text editors and IDEs we already know. Android Studio is also an IDE for Android application development. It has lots of features. I've been using this Android Studio for 6 years, and it has so many good features. Like it has code auto completion. Like um, when you want to build something on this Android Studio, it gives you automatic suggestions like what you want to do next, or automatically it completes most of the code for you. It's very easy to use and simple. So we all know about Android. So some very interesting thing about is that the naming is very good. So like they're following some alphabetical order. You know about this. So most of us are maybe using Oreo or Pi right now. So they have lots of versions from Cupcake to Donut to Eclair and Froyo. And recently we got Oreo and Pi. So in the Android Studio, what we are doing and how is the project structure, where we have to code, what is the front end, what is the back end. So this is somewhat important, but um, in this session, after this, don't worry, I'm going to share this PowerPoint presentations, as well as I have already deployed, I have already created a small application. You can get that application in this drive link. I'm just showing you so that you'll be familiar with this. So I have this GitHub repository. I will share the link in the chat. So I have just created an application. We are going to do the code walkthrough for it after the basics have been completed. So the BPT link is given here, and in this drive link, you can download the APK file and you can just test it. We are going to develop it again in this session, and these are the PPT files. Okay, so the code will be provided. So just follow along now. So this is basically the Android Studio. So don't worry, I will tell from the beginning, but just in order to show you how the projects will be structured. This is how the Android Studio panel looks. I will explain what each of these things will do in a moment. So on the top, if we just close completely, we just have two things over here, app and Gradle scripts. So we know this file, it is used to create some new projects or open existing projects or close projects or this kind of stuff. And this have the help functionality, or if you want to share your project to GitHub, all these functions will be available over here. This is the status bar. In here, you can see the status of your application. It is running, or I have just created an APK file. So it is showing APK is generated successfully for one module. So this APK file I have hosted on GitHub. So it is showing it. So the project structure of this Android Studio, or for developing Android applications, is that we have only two folders. One is the app folder, and the second one is Gradle scripts. In the app folder, we have manifests, Java, and RES. Don't worry about this generated. These will come after you run your application. So primarily, we have to focus on three things: manifests, Java, and RES. So all the backend, like in the RES, we have layouts. In these layouts only, we will create our UI, the buttons or text boxes or checkboxes or radio buttons, or the complete UI will be developed in this RES layouts. And in this Java, we will tell what should the UI component should do. Like if there is an radio button, or if there is a checkbox, what should be displayed over there, how they are going to be displayed, and what they are going to do. If you click on a button, what that button should do, everything we will write in this Java. In this manifest, it is just like during the elections we will tell what we will do, right? So in the same way, the parties will tell what they are going to do if they win. So the same way in this Android, this manifest file, it is just the same manifest we are going to tell for this for our phone. Like when it is installing in our phone, we are telling it what are the activities, what permissions we require. So like we have permissions for internet. So suppose we are going to develop some Google Maps application, then we need their location access. So that we are going to specify over here. So yes. So this is just the structure of Android Studio, the project structure. Yes, by default, Android Studio displays our project files in project view. So we have these three things: manifest. So we have manifest over here. In this, we have Android manifest.xml file in which we will tell what are the permissions we require from user. So like, do we need access to his contacts or his file storage or his phone calls or his location? We will just ask his permission in this file. In this Java, we will code the backend. In this RES, we will code the front end. All the UI components will be over here. This Gradle script is used for creating some advanced Android applications. Like if you require some servers, like if you are using some Firebase for OTP or verification, like if you are using some Swiggy or Zomato application, first you have to log in. So they will be using this Firebase, which helps them to send OTP messages to enable you to log into their web page. So in order to do all this high level stuff in these Gradle scripts, we can add functionality for these components for sign in and for OTP verification and stuff. So the user interface, just as we have talked, the Android Studio will be having this toolbar, navigation bar. Let me just show that. This is the toolbar. Sorry. So on the top, which we have, this is the toolbar. So this is one tool window. So there are so many tool windows. We don't go in depth about them. So these are all various tool windows. If you click on them, that particular tool window will open. So this is just about what are the components present over there. So I'll just come to this. So in order to use this Android Studio on your system, these are the system requirements that you require. So for Windows, you require a 64-bit operating system of Windows 8 or 10, and you require minimum RAM of 8 GB. So even my laptop has 8 GB of RAM. So it's better to have 12 GB or plus, because your system may hang if you use 8 GB RAM, because if you run some emulator kind of thing, it will be very hard to work with it. So for Mac, these are the system requirements. You can just check this out in the PPT. Now, how to install Android Studio? This is the our first topic in today's session. Like how to install Android Studio. It is very simple. We just have 3 steps. You have to install JDK, and I will just show this to you. So the 2 links that you require. The first link is for downloading Android Studio, and the second one is for downloading JDK. I will open it in my browser. So the first step for downloading this is that just type Android Studio download. So go to the second link. The first step is to type in Google Android Studio download. After you type it, go to the second link, download Android Studio and SDK tools. Click on that link. So I hope most of you have already downloaded this, but I'm telling for those uh, who are unable to do because of some network issues or something. So after coming to this page, click on download Android Studio. It takes a lot of time with this 933 MB, so just click on it, agree to the terms and conditions, and click on download Android Studio for Windows. So after clicking that, your download should start in a moment. So it is downloading, so I'm just stopping it because I already have it. You just download the entire Android Studio file. And after that, I will show you the steps what you have to do. So don't click on install. So because along with this Android Studio, for this to work properly, you require JDK. So just type JDK download in your browser. After you type it, go for the first link, Java SC downloads Oracle Technology Network. So click on this. After clicking on this, again you have to click on JDK download. So here you have to select your operating system. So it is Mac or Linux or Windows, and just click on this exe file. It is 150 MB. You have to install this as well. So you have to download this, just accept the terms and conditions and download this file as well. So the first step is to just here this. So the first thing you have to do is you have to install the JDK. After installing a JDK, I will show you how it will look like. So after you install the JDK, the first step is to install JDK. After you install it, in your users, like in your program files, your C drive in your programming files, you will be having a folder called as Java. This folder will be created after you install JDK on your system. So just go to the C drive. In the C drive, go to program files. In the program files, go to Java. So here we have JDK installed. So the latest version is 16.0.1 and you can download it. And I already have existing 12.0.1 version. So there is no difference for the latest one and this one. It is just required for us to run our Android Studio properly. So just click on this JDK again. Just click on this binary. So this is the location we require. Why do we require this? I will tell you. So in order for our Android Studio to get installed properly, first we have to download Android Studio file. The link is, if possible, take a screenshot of because I'm unable to share it in the chat. So the first link is for Android Studio downloading, and the second link is for downloading the JDK. So I have also shown you how to get to those pages in my browser. So after downloading the two files, first you have to install it. After downloading the JDK, install the JDK and setting up the environment variable. This step is very important and a bit confusing. So that's why I'm showing this. In order to set up your environment variable, the first step you're going to do here is that go to your C drive. In your C drive, go to your program files. In your program files, go to Java. In this, go to JDK. Come to bin, that is the binary files, and just copy this location. That's enough. Just copy this location you have, and after getting this, we are just going to add it in our environment path. So type in your search bar environment variables. If you type environment variables, you'll be having this option, edit the system environment variables. After clicking on it, you have to click on this option, environment variables again. So here, we all can see something called as path, PATH over here in the system variables. I'm clicking on edit. So you can add a new line here if you require. But as you can see, I have already added this location, C, program files, Java. Inside this JDK, I will add new one for you. So I'm just pasting the same location I have just got, like C, program files, Java, JDK, binary. So this is the location that we have been, and I have already kept it over here in my system. So you just have to do it and you just click on OK. So then the second step is finished. Then you have to install Android Studio. After you have installed JDK and setting up the environmental variables path, you can then freely complete your Android Studio installation. So how will the Android Studio? It takes nearly more than 40 minutes time based on your RAM. So if your RAM is 12 GB or above, it will just take half an hour for installing Android Studio. So I just have a small video over here to show you the process of installation. So after the Android Studio file is downloaded, double click on it. So it will take some time to open. Then as we already know, just click on next, next, next. Just keep hitting next button. So just select the location where you want to install and just click next. It takes a lot of time to install. After the installation is done, so you will be getting this page called as finish. After you click on it, it asks you to import settings. Just click on do not import any settings, and then it opens a page like this. So am I going too fast, or is my voice clearly audible, or should I go somewhat slow?
It's clear from my side.
What? Can you repeat?
Your voice is clear.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. So the installation process is very simple. Double click on it and just keep hitting next. And after you have imported the settings, you just have to select the standard settings. It asks you to select standard settings or custom settings. I prefer you click on the standard settings itself. So after the standard settings have been imported, it again takes 20 minutes or so to download that components. So after downloading all those components, one screen will appear. I will just show you. So this is the screen that you will get after completing everything. So after successful installation of JDK, setting up the variable path, installation of Android Studio, clicking on next, at last you should get this particular screen, start new project. Yes. So the next topic is designing basic UI, but to understand it better, I will show you the steps on how to create your first application. So this is the first page that you will get after installing Android Studio. So the first step is to open Android Studio, click on start a new Android Studio project. So after clicking on this, we have pre-built activities already. We have so many activities. So just click on empty activity for now. This is enough. We have a lot of activities like Google Maps activity, button navigation activity, basic activity, and so on. Just click on empty activity and click on next again. After this, name your application. So and select the write some package name like your company name or something, and you can modify the save location. You can select your language. There are two language options available for now. One is Java and another one is Kotlin. So one is Java and another one is Kotlin. You can select it, and after that you can select the minimum SDK. So what is this SDK version is that in the previous slides I have shown you the various Android versions starting from Cupcake to latest version Pi. So they will be having some versions like API levels. So I have to select that. If you select this is yes. If you select let me just show it to you in action. I will show these steps. So when you want to create some new project initially, after you click on the new project, this is the first screen that you will get. This is the first screen as I have shown you. First, you have to click on empty activity, click on next. After that, name your application. I'm just naming it as demo IIC 25th May. So I can change the package name if I want. I can change the save location. I can select my language, either Java or Kotlin. So this SDK level. So if you look at this small page, if you select API level as 16, your application will then be working in 99.8% of all the Android devices present over there. If you select KitKat, 98.1% of the applications supports your application that you are developing right now. If you select this 29 as your API level, only in 8% of all the Android applications present, in that systems only your app will work fine. So the recommended version is probably 25, I guess, because most people are shifting to the latest versions. But as you can see, the percentages also, this percentages will keeps on getting updated each time. So I'm just selecting 19 because then my application will be available for 98.1% of the devices. So I'm selecting 19 level. So you can even select KitKat, Lollipop also. Then it will be available for 94.1% of the devices. Then click on finish and your project will be successfully created. Okay. So after creating the activity, after creating the project, this screen, you will be getting this particular screen. So also, in order to test your application, how it is running, Android Studio also provides you an emulator. Like it is a phone on your computer screen. Like you don't need to have a phone to test your application. Android Studio provides its emulator in which you can select your favorite OS. Like it asks you whether you want to, let me just show it. So as of now, I am testing Pixel 2 API 28. So you can even create your own devices if you want. Like the emulator can be Pixel 2 XL or Pixel 3 latest versions. All the phones will be supported to run the emulator, but it makes your system so slow. So beware of that. So yes, so these are the two virtual devices you can create. For example, just click on this create new virtual device and you can create whatever device you want. Your favorite device, you can select the latest versions and stuff. So anatomy of an Android application project. So how will it be? What are the things we have? So these are the three files. These are the three components we have. We are only bothered about the one and two, activities and resources. So we are only discussing about these two things. Gradle files is for high-level application development. We don't require it for now. So activity is nothing but each screen in your Android app is an activity. I repeat. So you may be using so many applications. In that application, if you click on a button, you will be going to the next screen. So each screen is an activity. And there are a lot of resource files for us, like layout files, image files, audio files, and color files. In these layout files contribute to the design of your application. So this is the project structure. I have already shown this to you. So this is from here our actual Android application development, how to code and how to use it starts. Until now, we have looked into microservices. What are microservices? How will they be helpful for us? After that, we have looked what is basically Android Studio, how will it look like, and what is the project structure, and how to install it. We have looked until now. So from here, we are going to learn how to code. So what to do in Android Studio, how to design the front end and back end, we're going to discuss. So Android application development is very, very simple if you just know two things. So from here, we are going to learn the programming. So until now, you can do it by yourself if you have the PPTs. By looking at the PPT, I will provide these resources to you after the session. So you can, I have already given the step-by-steps on how to install and how to install Android Studio and videos. So until now, it's fine. So now coming to what to exactly do in Android Studio. So you just remember these two names and you'll be able to develop any application in Android Studio. The first one is layouts. The first and foremost one is layouts. And the second one is activities. This will be good. So first we have layouts and then we have activities. So what are these layouts? These layouts These layouts are the front end, like whatever the user sees, like or buttons, or I mean labels. So whatever the user sees on his screen will be written using these layouts. So how are these written? They are written completely in XML, but you don't need to know any XML. Android Studio provides this drag and drop feature, so you can just create your layouts very simply in very few seconds itself. So you just need to drag and drop with less than 1 minute. You can just create a layout, and you can just drag and drop the components you want, and your layout is good to go. So after that, what are these activities? This is the second term that I told you. The second term is activities. Activities are nothing but these tell what the components inside the layout should do. So in the layout, we have so many components. So what they should do, how they need to interact with the user. So everything we will code it in this activities. So activities can be basically written in two programming languages, Java and Kotlin, as we saw earlier. Remembering these two things, I will show you how we can design some basic UI components. I will show you with like I will create an application myself after completing this UI. So we just have very few topics in this, very simple. It hardly takes 10 minutes to understand this basic UI. But once if you get some clarity on how to design the UI, you can develop any application. We will be developing a small application at the end of this. I will show you directly like how to interact with the Android Studio and stuff. So first, we'll be just looking into four things: buttons, checkboxes, radio buttons, and spinners. Buttons are like these. On the top, as we can see, these are the buttons. We have three types of buttons in Android Studio. One is the basic button, normal one. This is image button, like it is having an image in it. This is an image button, and this is an button with image. So these are the three types of buttons that you can create. So we'll be looking these three types of buttons first. After this, second, we have checkboxes. Checkboxes. So what is checkbox in these? This is the checkbox. We have these, right? These three things over here. These are the checkboxes. This is one more UI component, and radio buttons. This is a radio button. So what is the difference between a checkbox and a radio button is that you all probably know, but in the checkbox, the user can select as many number of options he have. So given a question, if there are a lot of options, the user can select more than one. Then you can use checkbox. Radio buttons are used only when the user has to select one single option. So if someone is asking our gender, we will only select one. If they ask what is our favorite programming language, we may select two or three. So what are you studying? We will pick only one, BTech or MTech or PhD, something like that. So attending, yes, no, maybe. So that's it. So in these cases, we will use radio buttons. And coming to spinners, this is a spinner. It is like a drop-down menu. So in other frameworks, but in Android Studio, they are calling it as spinners. So first, how to create a button? It's very simple. Don't worry about it, but just before going to it, first we have talked about layouts and activities, right? So layouts and activities. There is one small thing that I wanted to share regarding the layouts. Basically, all the UI components, we call them as text view, image view, button, image button. So all these are basically views. Views are the user interface building blocks in Android. Okay, so I will show you. You can just, as you can see, this is our Android Studio. It looks like this. You can just select whatever component you want, like text view or button or image view. or scroll view, whatever you want, you can just drag it and drop it over here. That's it. And you can just change what the name should be displayed, what is it in here, the properties. That's it. No need to know or no need to understand any XML. But how it is interpreted is that when you drag and drop something, an XML element is created for it. So like this, suppose if you just drag and drop a text view like hello world, so this is the XML created for this text view. So we have for every text view, text is common, we all know. This text is the attribute that says what should be displayed over here. But the two things, width and height, these two are present for every element that we discussed today and every day. Like if you're using Android, if you want to use Android Studio for each and every view element, you'll be having two components for sure. One is the layout width and one is the layout height. So what are these two? I will tell you. So we have the size of view will be basically wrap content or match parent or a fixed value. These are the only three things. Now we will create a small project so that you will understand very clearly. I'm creating a new project, the first step. The second step is to select an empty activity, done. The third step is creating an application, giving the name for it, and I'm selecting Java, and I'm selecting here API 19 for KitKat, and I have clicked on finish. So it will take 1 minute or 2 minutes for opening it. Yes. So these are the same steps that you should follow. After that, I will also post this demo app project that I have done right now. I will also send you the code for this. Just a minute, it takes some time to load. Yes, as I've told you, this is the first. These are the first two things that we will get when we create a new project. One is activity in Java, and one is XML file, which is the layout file. So don't bother about this. It is very simple. I've explained, but first we are going to UI. So when you come to this activity main.xml file, this is the home screen, or this is the home page that the user sees when he first opens the application. So when in any Android application, when you are opening, you immediately after opening the application, this activity main.xml is the first screen that you're going to see. So I will just show it to you in my existing project. Meanwhile, it loads. We can just cover this small topic. Usually, we have these text views, buttons, and radio buttons and checkboxes and stuff. So we will group them in a view group. View group is a container that determines how views are displayed. Like, say this is a linear layout. So every element will be displayed linearly. Like it cannot display side by side like this. In order to display like that, you have to do you have to create one more linear layout. I will show it to you. Frame layout is nothing but it just contains only one element. If you just have one view, then you can use frame layout. If you have so many views, if you want to display them linearly, then you can use linear layout. Constraint layout is used when we have so many elements. If you want to use them with ease, you can use constraint layout. So we just bothered about this linear layout. Basically, linear layout aligns child views in a row or in a column. If you want everything in a single row, then you can select it by using the orientation. Okay. So the orientation can be two things: horizontal and vertical orientation. Yes, as you can see here, the orientation is two types. horizontal orientation, vertical orientation. So accordingly, the child elements will be displayed horizontally and vertically. So in the linear layout, first I have an image view, and then I have a text view, and then I have one more linear layout in which I have two buttons, a button and one more button. Okay, so these three are existing in different rows. Like this is one row, this is second row, this is third row. But in this particular linear layout, we have two columns. So the orientation has been changed. Now I think this app is ready. Yes. Okay. So my screen is visible right now. So this Android Studio page, I have opened activity main.xml over here. So this is the page that you get initially. You will be getting two files, main activity.java and activity main.xml. This is the first page that the user will be looking at. Just 1 second. So here we have a lot of components like buttons, image views, recycler views, and everything. And in this palette, you can select which type of component you want, like text or button or widget or whatever it is. So by default, we are given a text view which says "Hello World." So now I'm going to drag and drop some UI components like buttons, image views, and stuff, so that you will know how to use them. So first I'm going to buttons and I'm dragging. Before that, since we are learning the basics of Android Studio, I won't recommend you to use constraint layout. Um, Use linear layouts for developing some 5 to 10 applications, and after that you can use constraint layout. Initially use only linear layout. The code is auto completing, so just click on linear layout, it's enough. Now come to the design. We already have a text view over here. So after that, I'm just dragging and dropping a button. So as you can see, the button is placed next to this. The button is placed next to this one. And I'm dragging and dropping one more button. So now it will be also placed over there. They will be completely adjusting in the same row. Now I want, let's say, I want a checkbox. So I'm dragging and dropping this checkbox over here. So again, the same checkbox also will go to the same linear layout and it will be placed after the button. So, but now I want to show you this thing. You will understand two differences. Now, if you see this linear layout, we don't need to understand the XML files, just drag and drop. But if you see, this is the root linear layout, which is containing this text view and buttons. I'm just giving some orientation for this. Just look now. I'm just giving the orientation. I'm giving it as vertical. So immediately after I gave the orientation as vertical, all the components came one by one. If I give this orientation as horizontal, they will come one after the other, like side by side they will come. So if I give like vertical, they will come one after other, like down, like this it will come. So now coming to this text view. So this text view is having something called as hello world text. We don't require these things because they are given by default. Don't require these, just three things are enough. I will zoom into the screen. I just want you to understand only one thing. Here I have a text view. Just focus on this particular part. I have three attributes in the text view. One is the layout width, layout height, and text. I repeat, I have in each and every component, I just have layout width, layout height, and text. That's it. So this layout width is having something called as wrap content. So what is wrap content? So for everything, for every element you can see we have only layout width, height. We don't require this weight. I'll just remove this for now. So now I have this text view. In the text view, I have the width as wrap content. So what is my text? Hello world. Now I'm writing here, hello world IISc, and I'm writing I3D lab. So as soon as I write the text view is scaling automatically. Its width is auto adjusting. Wrap content is nothing but whatever content that is present, wrap accordingly for it. So it will be automatically adjusted. The text view is wrapped around that particular content. So what happens if I give match parent? Who is its parent? Linear layout. So if I give match parent, it takes the entire width. Like as you can see, I'm also giving the height as let's say also giving the height as match parent. So if you see it now, the linear layout is its parent. Its entire width, its entire height is being now occupied only by this text view. Only for this single component, the entire screen is being given. Now I don't want like that. I want my height only according to the content. So this is the wrap content. This is what it does. Okay. So this is the wrap content. So now coming to width. So I told you there are three things. You can give wrap content, match parent, or direct numbers. So you can give the numbers in DPs. So I gave 100 DP. So 100 DP is the width that I gave to it. So this is only the width. It should adjust in this particular space itself. Now you can just increase it to 200 DP. The size is increased. So similarly, the height also can be given as wrap content, match parent, or in DPs. But always give wrap content because it adjusts automatically for various screen sizes. This is about the text view, and it just has three attributes: width, height, and text. After this, you can, if you want to name it, you can give some name using the ID attribute. It will be given automatically when you drag and drop. Like for buttons, we have just dragged and dropped two buttons. Automatically, we got the IDs for it, like button, button two, like that. So now let us play with this button. Okay. So the width is wrap content. I am giving the width as match parent. So it takes some time to load, but meanwhile we can also adjust something else. For this button also we can give the width as match parent. So as we can see, both the buttons are now their width is completely touching their parent. Like whatever the width their parent has, the same width now these children will also have. So now I'm just changing this match parent to wrap content because it only takes whatever necessary. So in order to differentiate, I'm just using the two things here. So let's go to design because code makes me afraid. So yes, so this is the linear layout we have. I have they gave us text view. I have dragged and dropped a button, and I have dragged and dropped one more button. So now I am drag and dropping a checkbox. So I got a checkbox over here. So how to manipulate these components? So now I'm clicking on this linear layout. I'm clicking on this linear layout first. I have some attributes over here. I can give it an ID. I can give it layout width and layout height, and I can change the orientation to horizontal or vertical. So as you can see, I can change the entire orientation from here itself. And coming to the common attributes, the gravity. I will show you what this gravity is. So now I'm just clicking center horizontal. Just check this. What happened is that all the components tried to come to the center only horizontally. Only horizontally, all the components are now centered. Now I'm also giving center vertical and I'm giving this gravity. What happened is that now all the components are both centered horizontally as well as vertically. So we can change the gravity of layouts like this. So I also have so many other attributes, but they are not important for now. So just coming to the buttons. So I've just clicked on this button now. So I got that button's properties over here. It is this button's ID. ID is nothing but its name. So every component, if it has some name, it will be useful for us later when we want to do some high level programming. We require each and every element should have a name. So this is a text inside that button. So I am changing the text to click me. So the text will change for it. Yes. Now it also asking me like this click me button is having layout with as match parent. I am changing it to wrap content. So it has changed. So I can change the by button and text and I can do that. Now I'm coming to the I'm clicking on button 2 and its ID is button 2. Now I'm changing its text as okay, okay, send me or something like this or send email, just a button. So you can change it accordingly. So this is a checkbox. This checkbox has the text as checkbox. I'm just dragging and dropping few more checkboxes. So we can just arrange them however we want. So the first checkbox, I'm just changing the text as Python. And the second one, I'm changing it as C sharp. The third one, I'm changing it as Java or Kotlin. So that's it's very simple to design a UI for our Android applications. You just have to drag and drop the elements and change their properties over here. So you can just change, you can find all the properties for them. So now coming to this particular text view, if I just come down, it has a lot of properties. If you see here, this is the text. Hello world, IISc I3D lab is the text. This is the text appearance. It is a font family. Like we have a lot of fonts to use. Sans serif black. So I just changed it. So it's now a little bit more dark. If you see, this is the text size. So I'm changing it to 18 sp. So it size is increased. I'm still changing it to 24 sp. So now this is text color. I can change the color if I want. The text style is now bold. You can give italics. You can just give all caps so that all the letters will become capitals. So I'm just removing the all caps, italics, and underline. So you can also change the text alignment. If you have lots of text, you can change the alignment and stuff. So you just need to drag and drop the components, and just in this side panel, you can change their attributes however you like. It's very simple. Okay, so now we have text all caps as false, or you can just set it like however you like. So this is also a button. Again, I gave the text as click me, and I'm just coming down, and I have style over here, and what should it do? I will show it. Next, we have font family again here. I'm just giving it some font family so that this font family is not that much good. So let's change it to sans serif. So now you can again change the text size like 36. Okay, it's 130. So we can change the text color or we can change the text style. So this is what we can do with this. You can also do the same things in code, but the code is somewhat confusing for beginning. So I prefer going with designing, like dragging and dropping. Then you can come to the code. Okay. Told is that layouts just show the things like what the user sees, buttons, labels, and stuff. That's it. So we just drag and drop. So what those components should do, we will write that in Java or Kotlin using activities. So the next topic is activities. Now we are going to it. It's very, very simple. Let me just show it to you now. I will also do a code walkthrough, but just I have a button over here. Let me come to the design part. So you'll be familiar with it. So I have clicked on the click me button. So if you see here, you will have something called as on click. You have to find something called as on click in the properties. Here it is on click. So as of now, it is not displaying anything. You can tell your button what it should do when it is clicked in the on click. So what it should do. Now coming to the activities. So if anyone is familiar with C or C++, what we guys will do is that we first write something called as void main or int main. So the complete code will be written in the main function, right? And coming to Python, it don't have any main function. We can just write the code directly. But coming to Java, we need to create something called as public static void main string args, and in that we have to write it. Again, in the C sharp, we also need to create the same way. We have to uh, create these functions and classes inside that we have to write. Similarly, in Android, the layout files or these XML files will show the users the components like UI components. In this activity, we will code what those components will do. So this is on create function is like main function in C or C++ or public static void main in Java. So I just want to show some small text when the user clicks on the button. So I'm just writing, let's remember this. I will, this entire code, it is there in the PPT. I will show it in a moment. So I'm just writing public void and just writing some function called as show text. I'm just writing here show text. And I'm just taking the parameter as view. So those who are familiar with Java can catch up this, but I will explain this one also what this function means. So basically what this function is saying is that this method is public, that is anyone can access this function. This method returns nothing, it returns void. It does not return int or float or some string, it is returning void. That means it does not return anything. The function name is show text and view is what it gets as parameter. So inside this, what I'm doing is I'm just this toast, nothing but a small text that appears on your Android screen. I will show what is a toast and what it does. So I'm clicked. That's what this button says. But clicked. So I have written the backend now. Like this is not a big backend, but a small example. So I have written what that button should do. I have two buttons, right? So I am writing one more function called as show text 2. So this says I am clicked. This store says I am clicked by button. Click me. This says I am clicked by button. What is the button name we have? The second button is send email. So this click me. So we just have to click on this on click and just select the function you want. Show text for this one. That's it. It definitely immediately whenever you click on this button, it immediately calls this particular function on click show text. So directly this function will be called in the activity and this text will be shown. So this send email, I'm just again selecting the function I want to display and it is set. So similarly, how to work with these checkboxes, I will show you. Um, yes. Now we will start with UI components in the PPT, but I just want to show the application that I have developed yesterday so that I have some examples already set up. So by seeing that, you can understand more quickly. So that's what I thought. So this is the GitHub repository link if you want to follow along. I have posted the entire code in this particular GitHub link. So this is github.com/varun-l/demo app. So this is a GitHub link. So just open it so that you can watch the code, and at the same time I will show how the application is running in my phone. Today's session I have made an app combining all those topics we are going to discuss. So this is the application that I have developed combining all the topics we are going to discuss today. So app DEV D1. So if I just open this, the first I'm going to get these 3 buttons and a text field. So the first I have a button called as button. So I just want you guys to see just the screen. I will explain this code in the GitHub. First, just focus on this application. What are the components? How are they behaving? Then I will show you the code, why they are behaving like that. So first, when I click on this button, it is just showing some small text. This is the toast that earlier we have done in the project. So immediately, if I click, in order to get this better, I will go to my settings and enable show touches so that you can see where I'm touching and what is happening. Thanks for being so patient. So first I'm clicking on this button 1. So this is the message is called as toast. So and second, I have one more button called as cam1. So if I click on this, it is immediately opening a web page in the browser. Cam.net is open. So the first button, if I have clicked it, it is just showing a toast. It is just showing some text. If I click on the second button, it has opened a website in the Chrome. And the next one is a small button which you click. It takes you to the different types of buttons that I have shown you. One is the plain button. If you just click on it, this is called as snack bar. I want you to understand the difference between a toast and a snack bar. I hope the screen sharing is stopped, but yes. This is called a toast. It is used in earlier versions of Android, so it is not that much of user friendly, but this one is the snack bar. The snack bar looks more cool than a toast. This is snack bar. If I click on it, it is showing I am button. If you click on this, it is showing I am button with image. This is the second button I am clicking, and this is the third button I am clicking. I am image button. Okay, so these are the 3 buttons. So what I have done here is that initially there are more buttons over here, but I have disabled them. I have made them invisible. So if I click on this, this button is being displayed now. So if I click on this send email button, so it is asking me which app should I use to send email. So I'm clicking on Gmail. So if there is Outlook and if there are more apps, it will even show that also. So after clicking on Gmail, it is directly opening Gmail with 2 address that I have already given it. I have already given these components in the button itself. I have given the subject as demo. I have given the text as hey there we have built a new app, and 2 address also I have previously specified it. So this is what happens when you click on the button. This is also completely pre-built on this. So now when you click on next, it is taking us to the next screen. These are all the Enter UI components that we have saw already. So this first is the checkbox. If I select only C# and Java, and what are you doing if I select MTech, where do you live if I select, this is a spinner, I am selecting Earth. If I click on display, this is displaying you are good at C# and Java, and it is showing you are studying MTech and you are living in Earth. So this is just the basic UI components that we have and how they are being displayed. So if I long click on this display, we will go to the fourth screen in which I have video views, image views. So if I just click on image view, I will just show you what happens. it is asking me to take a picture. So I'm just clicking on. I'm just took a small photo. Sorry for my bad camera. And if I just select it, the same image will be displayed over here. If I click on stop, the image is being removed. I have set it like that. What happens if I long click on the image? I have also the same button can be used in two different ways. If you just click it normally, it opens your camera app and you can take an image and you can show it to the user. If you long click on it, it opens your gallery, and I'm just going to WhatsApp images and just some Baba photo I have just picked up, so that now that photo should be just a second. Yes. Okay. Yes. Fine. So this small issue I just corrected. So if I click on video view, it should display a video. So this is a video that we just saw how to install Android Studio. The same video I have used here also. So the same video will pop up over here. And if I click on stop, this will stop. The pause and resume button is also used for the video view. If the video is, yes, the video has started. So if I click on pause, the video is, okay. Yes, it's now paused. The video is now paused. If I click on resume, the video again continues to come up. If I click on pause, it again stops. If I click on resume, it again comes up. These are just the basic functions in that. So and finally, this page I have designed it for showing you how to connect to a web service, how to deploy it, and how to get the data from there. So to just summarize what we are going to learn in the next few minutes, we can just finish this off very fastly. But just to sum up, the first function that we're going to learn is showing the toasts in by using the buttons. And next, when clicking a button, like how to open some new web pages, or how the intents will work, transitioning from one page to next page. If I click on next, it is completely opening a new activity or a new screen. How to do this, we're going to learn, and how to show the snack bars, and dealing with button visibilities and stuff, and sending emails. These are just very small things, and we can easily finish it off. This is the UI components. We have just discussed this right now, and we can just pick up and do something over here. After this, how to deal with this image views and video views, I will show you. Fine. So let us start with this thing that we have saw in our application demonstration is that we have three types of buttons. This is the first button. You all know how to create it because you already understood what is wrap content, what is match parent, and what is layout width, height. So I have just created a small button with text, with some random text like button text. We also have one more component called as image button. With this image button, you have to give it the same, the layout width and layout height. Along with these, you have to specify some source. This source is nothing but an image. So how are you going this thing? How are you getting this image? Is that just download some images and drag and drop it inside the drawable folder. So in our Android Studio, this is our Android Studio. So there is a folder in resources. So when we just come up to complete top, in the app, we have Java. In Java, we have a couple of activities. In resources, we have drawable, layout, bitmap, and values. So coming to layouts, you all know that in layouts, we have these things like layout files, linear layout or something. And in the drawable folder, I have used some images, like some basic image. I have used this button. You have saw it in the demonstration. So this is the image that I have used over there. So this is the image, clearly you can see it. So you just have to mention the source of it. SRC is nothing but the source. In the drawable folder, just give the name of the button. That's enough. That is image button. It's done. So how to react to this event is that, as one of our friends have asked, just go to the on click, and in the on click, give the function name. That function will do whatever the necessary, whatever is necessary. What is this content description? This content description is that if you are working with HTML or CSS, you should be probably knowing, due to some problem, if the image cannot be displayed, then at that particular place some text will be displayed in HTML. Due to network issues or due to some other issues, if the image cannot be displayed, then this content description will be displayed. Or if some persons, like differently abled persons, if they are using the Android application, so if they are using the phone with voice mode, like um, in the voice mode, it means the application will read everything on the screen. It will read the content description for them. So this is the third type of button with image. It is very simple. We have the same button with layout, width, height, and text with small component called as drawable left. So here I'm giving the same button. So that's it. So this is about buttons, and this I have shown you. So this is in the XML page. We are giving the ID, layout width, layout height, and text. On click, I'm giving the function name as send message. Immediately, if this button is clicked, this function is called. I have shown you this, and I will also show the code in a moment. So send message function, if called, it should display some toast, or it should display some snack bar. So that we should do. This is the second method to deal with the button. So what should the button do if clicked? This is the second method. I want you to just focus on this for a minute. So this is nothing but, what is the ID of this button we have given? Like when the ID of the button as button send. Button send is the name of this button. So I am getting find view by ID, and I am giving the name of the button, r.id.button send. Or what is this R? R is everything. So whatever the resources you have. So we know earlier we saw a folder called as resources, in which we have drawables, layouts, and everything. Everything is contained in R. This R variable in ID, we are giving the name of this ID, button send. We are getting that button, and if it is clicked, set on click listener, what it should do immediately. If you type set, this entire code will come up. You don't need to learn this, or you don't need to remember these things. If you just type button.set, entire code will come, and you just need to type the same thing. I will just show this now, how it works. So this is our application. This is ClickMe, and this is this thing. So I am removing the on click for this. So I don't want any on click for this. So I've removed the on click for this send email. So I'm coming to this main activity. So what I will do is that I'm just writing here, I'm using a button. Let's name it as B2 is the variable name. And what is this B2? To which it should respond. For that, we are going to write find view by ID, r.id. Button 2 is the name of this button. How can I know its ID? As we know here, if you click on this send email, on the top it shows the ID of the button as button 2. So this button in this layout file can be linked to this activity by just this small function, find view by ID. So the basic method we all use is very simple. One is to use the on click. So just come down and go to the on click and just select the function you want. But if you don't want to use it, then just write b2 dot set on click listener. It is already showing set on click listener. Just click on it and just write new, and if you type B, the entire code just comes up like that. That's it. So you can just write toast.make text like this, and you can paste it over here. So it does the same thing. I'm just writing. So just a second, we can just toast. Yes. So I'm writing the text as am click by send me button. So you can select the duration of the toast. should it be short or should it be long? You can select it, so it's fine. And also here you can do something else, like let me show you. If this button is clicked, b2 dot set text, I am changed. So what happens is that immediately after this button b2 is clicked, it shows a toast, and then the button's text will be changed to am changed. So after this, we can also show a snack bar. Snack bar is the one that we saw in the second activity. Like when I'm doing my app demonstration, um, we saw two types of messages, right? One is the toast, and the second one is the snack bar. It is also very simple to display. I will just show it. Snack bar. This is a snack bar. You just need to call snack bar dot make. So in this make function, again, so even this toast also, you don't need to remember this entire thing. I will just show you how to do it. Just type POA. Just click on it. You just need to bother about this particular text, what you should show. That's it. The remaining components, we don't require them. So similarly, the snack bar also works the same. You just need to type snack bar dot make, and it auto fills up everything. You just need to type the string. Now I have shown you what a button should do when clicked and when long clicked. It is again simple. Dot set on long click listener. Here it is. Again, just type new view dot on long click. It just auto completes the entire code. We just need to write what it does when normal clicked and when long clicked. So this is what we saw now. This is about the buttons and UI components. Now coming to the next UI component, we have checkboxes. So by looking at this code, you should be understanding that we have a linear layout. This linear layout's orientation is vertical, and then I have dragged and dropped two checkboxes. The first checkbox, it has an ID called as checkbox meet, and its width and height are both wrap content, and what text it should display. This is this text. And on click, like when this checkbox is clicked, what it should do. This is the function name. This is the XML file, and this side is the Java activity file. Again, I have one more checkbox. This is cheese. Again, this is its ID, its text, its width and height, its on click. So if this is clicked, immediately this function is getting called in the activity. Here, what I'm doing is that on checkbox click method will be called. Here, we can get the status of that checkbox. This view is nothing but this checkbox. Initially, in the previous slides, I have told you that in Android Studio, every UI component is a view. So I'm just finding out if this is view is checked or not, true or false. Why we need this means, first you select Java and Python. Later again you uncheck it. If Java and Python are checked, then it should display both Java and Python. Again, if you click on Java, it will be unchecked. Then you should not display Java. You should display only Python, like that. So I'm getting the status of this checked accordingly. I'm just getting the ID of it, view.getID. If the clicked one is checkbox meet, then I'm doing something over here. If the checked one is checkbox cheese, I'm doing something over here. So I strongly recommend you to go through this and just give it a try. After the session, I will show its direct implementation in the GitHub project after this. So this is how it usually works. And coming to radio buttons, it is entirely same. We have a radio group first. Radio group is nothing but, let's say, this is again vertical or horizontal. We have two options for radio group. In the earlier application, I have shown you what are you studying, BTech, MTech or PhD. That is a radio group. You can create one more radio group which asks you what is your gender, male or female. So that is one more radio group. These radio buttons are the options we give. This radio button says pirates. Like this radio button says BTech, this radio button says MTech. So when this button is clicked, on click, I'm calling this on radio button click function. So again, the same thing. I'm getting its ID. If the clicked one is r.id.radio pirates, I will do one thing. If the clicked one is r.id.radio ninjas, I will do one more thing. Again, I will show this direct implementation in our project, in our application. This is the spinner. This is a bit complex one compared to other UI components. This is the example we saw earlier, right? Where are you living? Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, and so on. So basically, we create a spinner. It just has width and height and an ID. So in the activity, I'm getting that same ID by using this method. Find view by ID r.id. This one name is planet spinner. So I just have to write here planet spinner, not spinner. This is wrong. You have to write here planet spinner. So this after you get this spinner, you have to create an array adapter. Like from these items, like there is no need to create this string array. You can normally create the string array in Java, as you know. In Java, in C Sharp, the same method is used to create arrays. So you can normally create the array and you can just give the array items here. This planets array is the name of this string array. I'm just giving it over here and leave the remaining things as it is. So it will just display the spinner like this. I'm just giving an overview of this. So next we have intent. So intent is the thing which we saw in our application. So intent is nothing but when intent, the dictionary meaning of intent is intention or purpose. So if you want to do some action, then you will use this intent. So intents are basically two types: implicit intent and explicit intent. I recommend, or I want all of you to remember 1 minute. In the app demonstration, when I have clicked on cam bump button, immediately it has opened Chrome. It did not ask me to open it in Chrome or in Microsoft Edge or nothing. So it immediately opened the Chrome and it displayed the website. It is an implicit intent because it is done implicitly. It happened automatically. Explicit intent on another case is something you tell it explicitly where to go and what to do. Like moving from one screen of an application to another screen, you will explicitly specify where to go. So the first example for implicit intent is that implicit intent does not specify the component. In such case, so the information is available. So just see this example. Intent, this is the name of the intent. So this is action view. This action is the thing, it tells what that intent should do. For sending email also, we have used the implicit intents only. The examples of implicit intents are sending emails, opening web pages. All these things are implicit intents. The things which are handled by other applications are implicit intents. Stating simply, so if you see here, intent, this is the name of the intent, is equal to action view. I'm setting the data like some website, pp.com, and start activity. So this is responsible for opening that website. You can also create a search engine in your search engine application for you. It is very simple. If a button is clicked, what you should do is that get input from the user. I will tell you how to get input from the user. So get input from the user by using this method, and just in the place of this website, keep the website whatever the user has entered and start activity. That is implicit intent for you. So next, coming to explicit intent. So don't bother about this entire thing. The explicit intent is very, very simple. It just specifies the component. See this intent I is equal to new intent of get application context is nothing but the current activity. Activity 2.class is the second activity. So we just specify this is the source. This is the destination. If you want an example, I can show it to you. In the main activity, this is the code that earlier in the app demonstration we saw, right? This is the first screen. Immediately after the first button is clicked, we saw I am clicked by button 1. Immediately after the second, let me show you the activity also. I'm just showing you the design. So this is the design that we saw in our app demonstration. These are the three buttons we have: button, cam bump, next. So after the user clicks on this button, so on click function is fun1. On click function is fun1. So what is this fun1? This it is just showing some text and clicked by button 1. So this is what you have saw previously. So coming to the second button, Cambum. So it is saying on click fun2. So what is fun2? Fun2 is nothing but intent I is equal to action view. This is the website that I gave, cambum.net. So and start activity. It starts. It just, you know what happened next. It just immediately opened Chrome and opened that website. That's it. So coming to this next button, after clicking on this, what happened is that it opened the next screen. So the on click is fun3. So what is this fun3? It is explicit intent. Intent I is equal to just what is the source? Just see these two lines. The source is this activity name, main activity dot this. The destination is to where you want to go. That is main activity 2. This is main activity dot this. This is main activity 2 dot class. This one. So as we saw, this is main activity 2 dot. Yes, this is if you remember, this is our second activity. It immediately shifted to here after clicking on that button. So this is the example of implicit intent. This is the example of explicit intent. So I have also told you that sending email is also an implicit intent. I will show you. I will show you the code for it also in a second. So are you clear with this first screen? This is the first screen in the application. I will come screen by screen. This is the first screen. We have three buttons: button 1, button 2, and button 3. This button just shows a text. This button opens the cambum.net website. This button takes us to the next screen. This is the code for it. Very simple. So we have in the second screen, we saw these buttons: plain button and an image button, and a completely only image button, and this is a button with image. And we saw there is one more button over here, but it is invisible: send email button. And this is the next button. So for every button, I have given the on click functions over here. As you can see, what it should do on click, and I just clicked, that is present over here. So there is nothing much in this UI. You all already know this. And coming to its backend part, when the first button is clicked, it is showing a snack bar. I am a button. When the second button is clicked, it is again showing the snack bar. I am a button with image. I have shown you this in the demonstration. And coming to the third function, it is showing a snack bar, and also it is making visible the send email button. What happens when you click the send email button is that this is, as I have told you, this is again an intent. This is an implicit intent. So this intent is again action send. To whom this email should be sent? These are the email IDs that I have given. These are two email IDs I have given. And what is the subject of this mail? That is, a demo is the subject. And what is the text that should be sent in the email? This is the text. So this is the protocol for sending emails. It is the type that I'm checking it over here. And simply I'm calling this intent. That's it. So this is the basic implicit intent that you already know from the previous slides. So, and the last one is explicit intent. It is just moving from second activity to third activity. That's it. So if any screen is not understood properly, I can explain it again. So this is the third one. So in the third screen, I will show you what we saw over there. In the third screen, it is completely UI. We're going to, in this screen, we're going to see how to use checkboxes and spinners and radio buttons, etc. So just drag and drop these components and name them. So in the backend, what is happening over here, I will show you. So when the CC is a checkbox clicked function that I have written. So when the checkbox is clicked, so we already have C#, Java, and Python in the design part. It's the three things, three checkboxes we have. So after clicking on this, you can see when this checkbox is clicked, it calls a function called as CC, checkbox clicked function, and C# is its text. So it calls accordingly the particular functions. So this is the spinner, and these are the radio buttons. So when the radio buttons are clicked, I'm just calling a function called as RB. That is a radio button. This function is just storing the value in a string called as radio value, the particular text. Uh, like let's say if the radio button name is btech, in the radio value btech string value is stored. If the radio button clicked is mtech, so the radio value will be mtech. So if it is phd, accordingly it will be happening. So after you click on the display button, so for the display button there is already an on click function called as a3 fun1. So the a3 fun1 function is showing us the output, what we saw earlier, the toast, in which it shows you are good at the programming language you have selected in the checkbox, you are studying the radio value, either BTech or MTech or PhD, and you are living in either Ect or March, that is the Springer values. So again, at last it is showing the toast. Also, the same function I have given it a long click listener. So to take me to the next activity, that is a main activity 4. So this is what we saw in the app demonstration. So next we have integrating the web service and image views. This code is available in GitHub and has been provided to you. So, okay, so coming to web services, yes. So the people who are yes, in our application, we are going to learn about how to integrate our application with web service. So the people who are already familiar with JavaScript can use Express.js framework for constructing a a website or a web service. People who are familiar with PHP can use Symfony 2, and who are familiar with Ruby can use Ruby on Rails, and who are good at Python, they can use Flask or Django for creating their web services. Who are good at .NET, they can use ASP.NET web service for it. So in our Android, we are using Wally. So Wally is a library which helps us to connect to a web service and to directly contact with your website, which is present anywhere. So like it can be deployed even on your local server also. The Wally will be able to handle it. It can be a local server or it can be deployed in Heroku or somewhere else. But Wally can handle a lot type of requests like get request, post request, put request, delete request. So it works extremely well. It is the framework that I have used it for developing a project called as Disaster Reporter. So it's very easy to use. It's very simple. The main key components of this Wally is that you first need to create a request queue. There is something called as request queue because you may be calling so many requests. Like let's say I have a URL called as google.com. So in the string request, I'm using the get method. So I hope you're already familiar with get method and post method. If not, get method is used to get some data from a website. Post method is used to add some new resources to your website. Like if you want to create a new user, if you are registering a new user, then you will use the post method. If you want to get some details regarding the user, you will use the get method. So if time permits, then I will explain in detail about get request and post request using the Flask. So coming to Wally, we basically have a request queue. This string request is just only one request. Like this request, we can have some hundreds of requests. We can add all of these requests in this queue. I have a URL called as google.com and I'm calling this URL using a get method and I'm giving this URL, and after I got the response, I'm showing the response I got from this get request in a toast or in a text view. I'm just setting the text. That's it. And finally, I'm just adding this string request in the queue. Then only it will start executing. This is how Android Wally works. And in order to create a web service, or if you want to create your own server for creating an application, you can use Flask. It is the minimal Flask application. You just need to write a very few lines of code. Just write. If you are anyone of you is familiar with Python, you can use Flask, or you can create your own. You can use your own web frameworks to create websites and send your websites to this particular in URLs using some GET request or POST request. So you can just check this out if. So this is about web services. It is very basic thing, but um, I will show you a small demonstration of the application, how it works. Web service is pretty simple. I will just show a small demonstration of it. So I have created a small Flask server. It acts as an website through which the Wally can interact and get some data from it. I will show you the code for it. I'm just opening it. Yes. So it's very small one. You can easily understand this one. So to understand this, I'm parallelly opening the web service screen that I have developed, uh, that I've shown you in the app demonstration. So we saw this right earlier during the app demonstration. I have not shown you this, but I have shown you the screen. So what is the screen is that in the input, I can send some input to the web service, and after clicking on send, I can get some output from the web service and I can show it in this text view. That is what this does. We don't require this web view, it is not required. Just three components in the screen: edit text. This edit text is used to get some input from the user. So it again has layout width and layout height. EMH is the number of characters that the user can enter. Int is this text, what can be shown over here, enter input. And the input type is what type of inputs can this edit text can take. So like I can show you this. This input type can vary from wide range. It can take passwords. If you select the input type as password, then whatever you type will be displayed in stars. If you select phone, only numbers can be entered. If you select text, only text can be entered. If you select date or time, only those components can be able to can be displayed. So I'm just selecting number sign so that I will enter only numbers over here to send the inputs for my web service. And after clicking on send, I can get the response. As you can see, the on-click function, which says which function to call, is calling a function called as go volley. So the response will be shown in this text view. So this is just a very simple code for this web service. What it is doing is that I have given a URL. This is my local host web server. That is this Flask application. This is the Flask application. You can use whatever language or whatever framework you like. So this is the URL I gave. This is the even is the edit text in which we are entering our input. So the name of this edit text is, as you can see, edit text number signed is the ID of it. So the first step is that I have used the find view by ID to get this edit text, and then I am getting the text from it and I'm converting it to a string. And with the code I have shown you in the slides, I'm just creating a new string request. I'm sending a get request to this URL. URL is nothing but the URL which you just saw, this URL. And immediately after getting the response, I'm just setting that particular response in this text view that is present over here. This is a text view. I'm sending this response in this text view. So I'm again just creating the request queue and adding this string request in this request queue. That's it. That's how this response works. Let us say if I have entered 1 in the edit text window, it displays hello world in the text view. If I enter anything, it just displays welcome to party. So just something, a small web service. So the same thing we have implemented in the disaster reporter application. I will also share that GitHub repository link with you so that you can check it out later. As you've already worked with Flask, I'm just creating a basic Flask application over here, and I'm just creating a small function. So the same function I'm calling from my Android activity so that it returns the appropriate action. But this cannot serve all the people, right? This event cannot serve to Bangalore or Tirupati, even entire city also it cannot. It can only serve my local server, that is my local machines, the machines which are up to my home. So in order to deploy this, we have something called as Python Anywhere. We have this Python Anywhere. So in this website, you can just host the same Flask application over there. You can just create a free account over here. I will just log out. So you can create a free account. Um, you need to just sign up and just come to pricing and sign up. Here you can see for the beginner level for the free account, it, for up to 3 months your web server will be alive. After that also it will be alive, but you have to, for every 3 months you have to refresh your website. At least once you have to refresh your website, then your website will be alive for a lifetime. So in this Python Anywhere, you just need to host this one single file, and they will give you one website for this file, like let's say demoapp.com. So you can send all of your requests, get requests or post requests for this particular website. So that is how you can deploy. But I'm not using Python Anywhere right now. I used to use it once, but as of now, I'm using Heroku because Heroku is still a lot more better than this. Um, as you see, I have a small, I already deployed a small application on Heroku. I can show it to you. This is a small website and also an web service. The main advantage that I wanted to discuss about this is that this is actually a machine learning model. It is not a single model. It takes the temperature, humidity, and rainfall. So let's say I gave some random temperature and some humidity and rainfall. If I click on submit, it tells me what crop should I grow with these particular conditions. But this output is predicted using so many models. Like I have used machine learning models like random forest. I have used nearly 10 models, and I'm comparing all of the outputs and I'm returning the request. This same output to be generated in mobile, it requires a lot of processing, right? Like if you need to train some 10 models, if you need to predict the output from those 10 models and you need to display it, means it requires a lot of processing, and the application size also grows if you deploy so many models. So what I have done is that I'm just sending a get request. As you can see here, see, this is the get request. I can change the values over here like 30, and the humidity I can just change it, and the rainfall I can change it from my Android wallet. So if I send, it will give me some output as an API response. So that is the main advantage of integrating a web service. So similarly in Heroku also the same thing. You just deploy your Flask application, just copy this entire text and paste it over there, and it will give you a website. So they have given me a website called as like this. You can name your custom name. So my name is originalagroproject.herokuapp.com. So I am sending my all web services and web requests to this particular website. So similarly, you can also use Python Anywhere as I have shown, or you can use Heroku to deploy your web service, and you can redirect all of your web requests to that particular website.